Thanks everybody for showing up. Bob, thanks for giving me the opportunity to do this. I see a lot of new names. And so I think it's a great time to sort of share what we've been doing as we sort of transition into some sort of new normal. So I wanted to take you guys through what we've been doing pre-Kenono, during the COVID-19 pandemic, and ideas for the future, and how you guys can get involved using your research and your resources. So let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, Bob, are you there? I want to share my screen with you guys. Bob.
Oh, sorry, I was muted.
Oh, no worries. Can you?
Yeah, I'm doing it. Sorry.
Okay.
Shoot.
I think if you just go to participants.
I got it. They changed it on me. I keep forgetting. Go ahead. You should be good now.
All righty then. Here we go. All right. So Bob already introduced me, but yes, I'm the Education Outreach Program Manager for the Marine Science Institute. I'm the ed rep for the Santa Barbara Coastal LTR and the co-chair along with Kara Haas, who's at the Kellogg Biological Station LTER. And so, like I said, it's not going to go the whole time. I wanted to briefly describe what I do as part of the Schoolyard LTR, give you guys a brief history, share some of our partnerships, introduce a new model that we've been working with for delivering science education and beyond, and some of the products that we have developed. So the Schoolyard LTR is an opportunity funding provided via the LTR to do education and outreach. Everybody knows that our goal with the SBC LTR and determining how natural drivers influence giant kelp dynamics and alter long-term structure and function of the kelp forest ecosystem. SBC LTR program focuses on environmental education for students, and that includes higher education institutions. A lot of our work, as you'll see, is with K-12, but it certainly is not the only thing that we do with the science of the LTR. We work with teachers, the general public, and as I said, we use the SBC research themes to frame our literacy. So brief history. The Reef has been a vehicle for literacy since the early 2000s. It was built as mitigation for the seawater intake upgrade that needed to be done for the new marine science building that everybody occupies now. It's the centerpiece of our education and outreach efforts, but we utilize lab/classroom space in the Marine Biolab building, 1004 and 1010. We have activities and lessons down on Campus Point Beach, up on the lagoons and the bluffs. As you guys know, the walk between the Marine Science Research Building and Campus Point is a perfect vista for really articulating the entire SBC LTR geography. So from the top of the Santa Ynez Mountains all the way out to the Channel Islands, and the lagoon and the bluffs adjacent to Campus Point Beach. And we have a thing that we do called the Stray Student Stroll, where the undergrads give a campus tour to our student visitors, K-12, or other colleges. A lot of community colleges come, and so we'll take them on a tour of their sort of personal tour of what campus is like and the science that they're working on, labs that they're working in. We also go into classrooms and do takeovers. I'll share a little bit more about that in detail. And then we have our mobile reef unit, which is a mobile touch tank that we can take to community events like Earth Day, Harbor Festival, classrooms, science nights, et cetera. And I wanted to show this picture because this is the newest learning space that we have. And thanks to a generous donation from Betty Wells, a local philanthropist, the ex-wife of Virgil Ealings, as a matter of fact. I don't know how many of you know this space or recognize this space. We were having a chat about it earlier with Bob in terms of the trailers, because these trailers down at the end of Lagoon Road used to be MSI. The admin trailers still exist, but there were 2 trailers that had researchers' offices that really suffered over the last few years. And so Dan Reed had his office down in one of the 2 trailers that were here. They pulled them off over Christmas, winter break, and created a DG pad. And so I worked with Lisa Stratton over at the Cheadle Center for Biodiversity and Ecological Restoration. We created this vista, but then I suggested we add tables there. So we've got this outdoor learning space now. There'll be Wi-Fi there, so we can use that for teaching outside, but also you guys are welcome to come down and have meetings as well. So this is sort of the interior of the reef. It stands for the Research Experience and Education Facility. As Bob mentioned, it's UCSB's teaching aquarium. We work with really from preschool all the way up to college. Biology of fishes class comes in, a whole bunch of other UCSB campus courses as well. And this is sort of breakdown of what our numbers are. So prior to the shutdown, we were serving roughly 20,000 annually. We had 3 main audiences: K-12 education, 13,000 visitors a year through campus visits, classroom visits, and then since the coronavirus, we've developed a Zooming program where we can take kids live into the reef. UCSB science education, about 3,500 a year, multidisciplinary courses, labs, outreach, different departments, EEMB, environmental studies, writing, the Office of Student Life. We've been able to support that this year through Zooming in the reef as well. So a lot of courses still stayed on track with us doing live. We also do a lot of work with the Visitor Center this year. In the past, during spring break, Parents and Family Weekend, freshman orientation, people would come to the reef and the undergrads would sort of serve as the communicators for that. We were able to do that via Zoom. And although I was the only one that was able to be in the reef, we had the undergrads on sort of serving as panelists, and then the general public on Fridays and Saturdays prior to the shutdown, we were open to the general public, and we're going to start streaming live in there very soon. Yeah, so our data for the last year, 2020, we actually had over 25,000 visitors. We do this with a bunch of different partnerships. And again, while my job is the education and outreach coordinator for the Marine Science Institute, as well as the SBC, really the idea is to use the science of UCSB, MSI, and therefore specifically the SBCltr. So a lot of what we deliver is done using the science of the SBC, as well as the MCR, and then other UCSB research where relevant. We work with the Office of Education Partnerships. Their goal, main goal, is to try and improve matriculation into UCSB from our feeder schools, which are in the Tri-County area. So San Luis Obispo County, Santa Barbara County, Ventura County, and actually out towards Kern County as well. So we have visitors, schools that come from as far away as Porterville. We work with the Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuary, developing content together, providing teacher professional development in partnership. Last summer, we worked very closely with the Santa Barbara County Education Office. We were going to do a teacher professional development workshop that leveraged the science of the SBCltr in person, and then the coronavirus hit, but the person at the SBCEO office was totally gung-ho to give it a shot virtually. So we did it virtually. We were able to provide teacher professional development to 32 teachers that were mainly grades 4 through middle school. We developed a couple of products for that, or utilized a couple of products. One is the Golden Forest book that Jenny Dugan and Carol Blanchette wrote. We created a PowerPoint read version of it. So one of my undergrads read the content, so that could be used in the classroom. Bunch of different tools, working with the teachers, sort of bi-directionally, so that we could give them the content, but we can also work with them on how to best deliver that content. So they got science content, professional development. We got more pedagogical content development, and then worked to create lessons in their classroom. And those will be going up on the website because there were some really cool lessons that they created. One of the ones we're really excited about, we've been doing it for almost 13 years, is with the American Association of University Women. They have a program called Tech Trek. It is a math and science camp for girls. It is a week-long residential program at UCSB, where 80 girls, middle school girls, get to stay in the dorms and do a bunch of different science stuff with different core classes. I'm the only male that gets to serve as a teacher, but what I usually do with that is I have a bunch of the undergrads and grad students have the opportunity to work with the girls over the course of the week in improving their marine science content knowledge and experiences. Prior to the shutdown, we had Mia Notarski, who's a chem grad student, and then Mary McElroy also participated in developing a lesson plan and going through stuff with the girls. And we're looking forward to continuing that. They did a online version of it they were able to participate in last year. So we've been maintaining that and are looking forward when the campus opens back up to doing that again on campus. And then last but not least on this partnership is the work that we do with the Gewurz Graduate School of Education. Harding School is a local K-6 school that was sanctioned by the state about 10 years ago. And so they became what's called a university partnership school, and have been working with GGSE to try and improve their literacy to bump up their state scores. So we've been doing various things for the last 10 years, but in the last 2 years, it's really sort of coalesced into a really cool program in partnership with GGSE and Dr. Diana Arya, who runs the Community-Based Literacy program there. We developed a course, Ed 139, called Coastal-Based Literacy. So I co-teach that with her. it focuses on providing undergraduates interested in an education minor with marine science content knowledge to support this program, this community-based literacy program that we've worked on with Harding now for the past 3 years, where the 4th graders write poetry, the 5th graders did journalism, and the 6th graders did fiction. And it's sort of morphed into, they can pick whatever genre they want to write about, but it uses this idea that I'm going to describe in just a moment, and that is our maritime community. So just like the SBC, while the science is the focus, there are a lot of different connections that are made with our community. I grew up in Santa Barbara, so I have a lot of relationships with a lot of different people, and it's centered around our maritime community. So I have, you know, friends that fish, surf, dive, or in the tourism industry, the fishing industries, the oil industry. And so a couple of years ago, I sort of came up with this model for this, and we've been developing it and utilizing it with the Harding University Partnership School, and are moving into working cross-site with an idea about this, our X community model. So using the community that the LTR site resides in. And so this is the model. So central to it is our maritime community. And then we developed 4 themes: our beaches, our watersheds, our channel, and our harbor. And you can see there are various overlaps. So we try and get the kids to understand that not only is there science, but there are stakeholders that are involved with it. There are pre-European, post-European components to it as well, development, natural resources, et cetera. And so their goal is to write something based on one of these 4 themes. Most of them pick animals, and a lot of them love turtles and dolphins. So one of our goals with the Ed 139 students and the reefers that I have is to try and guide them to write something more focused on our maritime community and understanding the ecosystems and the socioeconomic components of that. So that gets us to our products. And a lot of people talk about getting back to normal. And I don't think that way. I think we're going to a new normal, and that's really awesome. And using some of the things, the challenges that the pandemic has presented us with, and figuring out ways to move forward with that. Kara and I had a meeting yesterday and getting ready for our monthly meeting. We were talking a little bit more about the different elements of the community-based literacy model. And we kind of came up with this idea that we're the shepherds of the LTR, trying to take the science of the site. We connect with the teachers and students of the community and figuring out a way of synthesizing that to come up with ways of improving literacy. And so we've been doing that. Can you guys see this whole slide? It cut off the bottom.
We can see, you can see RETs at the bottom.
Just down to the RETs. Okay, I'm gonna pop out of this because it's the last one. Pop out of presentation mode, so hopefully we can see all of it. There we go. Can you guys see that on my screen now? So with you guys, the scientists, the researchers, PIs, grads, et cetera, we can develop different things through our Oceans of Classroom models, the SBCltr, and the reef, utilizing undergrad and grads for training. And that is, it's really cool using the undergrads in the reef A lot of them don't have a lot of research experience, but we also want them to get that. So utilizing graduate students as trainers for that, but then also being a vehicle for grad students and postdocs who are interested in communicating their research, developing content for various grade levels, and obviously education and broader impacts is a key component to NSF. Cross-site collaborations, we've been talking a lot about it and exploring different ways to do that with the Education and Outreach Committee. And I know that we just sent out a poll. I know Andy is doing an RET this summer, taking some teachers out there, but figuring out ways that we can put in requests for funds for REUs, RETs, and a bunch of different collaborative ways of doing it to provide cross-site collaborations, but then also getting undergrads who are interested in both science and education or communication, working with teachers in a collaborative way with the grad students and their science. One example of that is turning up the heat, which SBCltr is working on a project with Kellett Welks in Gretchen's lab. And so we designed a system for holding and acclimating Kellett Welks, which are an emerging fisheries, down in the reef. She's been working with one of my undergrads, and we've been Zooming, and she's been presenting her work to classrooms that we've been Zooming with. So it's kind of really cool for the kids to see a person of science right there doing that. She and I also developed a program along with a former undergrad called Reflections, where a reefer is working in a research lab with a grad student, and they develop a 5-minute sort of speed talk on the work that they've been doing. We've done it 2 years in a row now. The first year was in person at the Marine Science Research Building. The second one we did virtually. Both were really well attended. And it went off very well. We've been discussing, it's usually happened at the end of the year, but with the coronavirus and thinking about how much field work happens in the summer, we're thinking about moving it to the fall. And that will work well, especially this year with the coronavirus and the school opening back up. So we've been chatting with graduate students in developing that. And again, the reefers that I have, the undergrads that work at the reef, are a great resource. I work diligently with them early on to try and get their science content knowledge up, because a lot of that doesn't happen in the detail that we need until they're in their junior and senior years when they're getting upper div classes. So we try and pad their knowledge a little bit on that end. And then social medias. So Mark Page asked the question, what we've been up to prior to the meeting starting, what we've been up to at the reef. Hopefully I've described most of that. Right after the shutdown, we scrambled and tried to figure out what to do. And I really wanted to try and come up with a way to keep the undergraduates occupied and sort of engaged, because it was very easy to become disengaged. And I don't know if you guys remember early on when everybody was at home, at least I had to come down and take care of the fish, but I still started losing track of the days. And it reminded me when my daughter was in kindergarten that they learned the days of the week to the Addams Family intro song. So this is what I came up with. I'm just going to torture you with the intro and I'll articulate it a little bit more. Days of the reef, days of the reef, days of the reef, days of the reef, days of the reef. The summer still was Sunday, and then comes Molly's Monday, and then we're in on Tuesday. We're away to sea, our
ocean roll on Wednesday, and tropical on Wednesday. We'll have fun fishing Friday, and shellfish Saturday.
Hello, and welcome to Submersible Sunday. My name is Scott Simon, and I'm the director of the Research Experience and Education Facility.
All righty then. As it said, there were the various days of the week. And so we had Mollusk Monday, Temperate Tuesday. So we focused content, we developed videos to that. You can go to our YouTube channel and check them out in more details. It was a first go at it. Obviously, it was very crude, and it was a crap ton of work. I had no idea how consuming it would be, but it kept us all focused and functioning early on. We sort of put it on the back burner after summer because we're Zooming more, but we're bringing it back around, and we're going to focus the content, do a little bit of scrambling with the content, and focus it more on the specific things that teachers are requesting us to do. And there were a couple of snafus. So if you guys watch the on Temperate Tuesday, we have one on the SBCltr, but it was based on the old website, not the current website. So we're going to upgrade that. And with that, I think that is the end. So let's talk.
Okay, thanks, Lurch. I mean,
as you wish.
That was awesome, Scott.
Thanks, Gretchen.
I hadn't seen that before.
Yeah.
Oh. I don't really have any specifics, but I just wondered if you could reflect a little bit more about like that there is no silver lining to the pandemic, of course, but are there things that you really think you learned, take homes about online content? Because I think I did in my own teaching, and I don't think it's going away. How do you feel about that at the Reef for our future LTR activities, just generally?
Yeah. Great question. We learned a lot. I don't know. I think it was my first all scientists meeting back in Estes Park, way back in whenever. And there was a lot of discussion of distance learning. And I was like, that'd be really cool. But we were always so busy, so full in the Reef, 5-6 days a week, that it wasn't something, we weren't forced to do it. And I just didn't have the capacity. So one of the silver linings with that is it forced us to do it. And it was actually really funny because it happened in spring. One of my interns was from Chicago. Her mom was a teacher at an elementary school in Chicago. And she said, hey, could you shoot some video in the Reef so that I could walk my mom's class through it? And I said, well, why don't we try and I'll Zoom in on the class. We'll do it live. I don't know why I'm saying live. It was live. And so that was how we sort of got to doing it. And so then we put the word out because we had to cancel. Spring is our busiest time. That's when they teach life sciences in K-12. And we were actually able to get a lot of teachers to kind of buy back in. But one of the challenges was they were not very tech literate on how to do it. And we did not have the best technology for doing it. So we've upgraded our capacity to do that. And so the resolution, the quality is really good. And then by doing it more and more, it's gotten better and better. So one takeaway from that is that obviously if their schools are open and the university's open and they're local, we can continue to do that. However, there are schools all over the country, and actually we've Zoomed with one of my former interns does Teach for America, an inner city school in New Haven, Connecticut. It was a Human and Social Science and Arts Academy High School. We Zoomed with them. I had to get there at 4:30 because their first class started at 7:30. But so we've Zoomed all across the country now, and have actually Zoomed in Costa Rica, Colombia, and Thailand. So our sphere of influence, our ability to cast a much broader net and to do that distance learning will not go away now, since we have the capacity to do that. And there are some undergrads that are really good in front of the camera and other ones that aren't. So that will give us opportunities to sort of do that. The whole YouTube channel and the ability to do things via social media, that really grew with us. And so we'll be able to attend to that more and have students working on content that way as well. And then across campus, with the creation of this Ed 139 class, the community-based literacies, sort of increasing that that type of work, so that it's not just science literacy, but looking at the different ways, multimodal ways of communicating science within our community.
No, that's great. I mean, one thing, just something to remind me to talk about later. There's a lot of activity right now, like in the NSF space, about how we start taking some of our federal investment and really applying it more to minority serving institutions and reaching populations of students that might be a little bit underserved as compared to being an R1. So we're a little weird because we're like an HSI, but an R1, you know? But one of the mechanisms, Scott, that people are like, people who are in this space making these reports is recommending is like a partnership of R1s with HSI or MSI, so minority serving institutions that are either historical or are done by enrollment numbers, you know? So it could be that the REEF could be a really cool part of eventually forming partnerships, and the LTR coming along to be able to deliver this content, you know, to some distant small college somewhere in a really cool way. So
yeah. And that is something. My dad was a high school teacher, English teacher, when I was growing up in Santa Barbara, and he taught at La Cuesta, which is a continuation school. So he was very much involved in issues of diversity, equity, inclusiveness. We were raised that way. And I modeled the REEF around that, trying to have as diverse a group of undergrads as possible. The Tech Trek program, a lot of the programs that we work with, the Office of Education Partnerships, that's their main goal, is trying to increase and provide access to UCSB to underserved communities. And then I know Nick Ohm, who is the EOC for the Florida Everglades, LTR, but he is also a professor at Florida International University, which I think is a historically Black. So we have had lots of conversations. So yeah, I think I look forward to being able to do more with that as we continue forward.
yeah, I think we'll just kind of watch for these opportunities, but definitely the REEF is a, you know, golden.
Yeah.
So, thanks for sharing all that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I just have one question, Scott. Just nuts and bolts speaking, if a graduate student or a researcher was interested in working with you on, you know, transferring their results perhaps to the educational mission, how would they go about doing that?
Contacting me, and we can have discussions about exactly what, you know, their data are. The Kellogg Biological Station has a couple of, well, they have data nuggets where they try and take data, you know, big blocks of data from the LTR from a specific site and come up with ways of representing it in a way that teachers can use it in their classrooms. One of the things that we found, though, is that data literacy is still a big problem, and it's a big leap, even though the data is produced in a more meaningful way. But working with grad students, with researchers on those data, and figuring out how we can deliver it in a meaningful way to a teacher / classroom, so that those data can get into the classroom, the kids can work with them in a way that that they get what's going on with the particular LTR site. And then there are all of the other elements of that, right? The natural history of the organism that they're working on. Or, you know, I am really a big champion of, obviously everybody loves the animals, but what about the other sciences, right? Those are the ones we need to get people fired up on, so that they have a better understanding of it and are more literate moving towards college. So the physical sciences, you know, geography, earth sciences. So regardless of what the research is, that's where we really come in this idea of a shepherd for the LTRs, is to take that information, work with the researcher, and figure out a way of developing a product, whether it's a video, story, lesson, etc.
Scott, I just wanted to say that, well, you know, the outreach component of SBCltr has always done really well in the midterm reviews. It's always been this really shining star that gets just rave reviews and stuff. And with the midterm review coming up this fall, I'm just thinking that this would be a great time for us to be thinking about, you know, how we want to showcase, you know, the outreach component for the midterm review. And I'm wondering if you've thought much about that, or if you think that the best way to kind of move forward on that is for us to maybe get a group of people together to kind of I mean, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on preparing for the midterm review and how you think we should proceed with that.
Yeah, so actually, Bob and I have been talking about it. We're going to try and get together next week and discuss it a little more in depth. As a committee, that has been a topic that we have been bouncing around for better part of a half a year now. We only get together once a month, but we've been discussing it in various ways. Marty Downs always attends the meetings, so you know, she sort of gives us her perspective on that. So we've been thinking of a lot of different ways of doing it. As you know said, in the past, we have done very well as a site. I have no doubt that, like with the rest of the world, being an ocean-based one LTR in Southern California gives us an advantage that everybody's always happy to be here. But I think between the science and the education and outreach that we do, I think we'll be able to put something really good together. So I look forward to working with Bob and the rest of the site on it.
Yeah, no, I'm convinced you'll be able to put something good together. I'm just wondering the extent, if there's things we could be doing now to maybe prepare for that, or, I mean, the extent to which you can really integrate SBC researchers, whether they be PIs or undergrads or grad students, people that are familiar with the project in the outreach component, that really helps to really show the link, as opposed to, because we have had, and I know I've been questioned at it in the past about, well, is this outreach thing, is this, I mean, who funds it all? Clearly it's not all SBC, and are you guys just giving them money for a general thing, or they're always really interested in knowing how the SBC component comes out in the outreach.
Yeah, so I actually have an undergrad right now compiling a list of our content that is focused on that. So as I mentioned, Mary McElroy, you know, was involved in Tech Trek. So that was a direct link to the SBC. Mallory Rice worked with Diana Aria on her community-based literacy project, and they published a book called STEMinists in science, and she's on the cover of the latest edition of that book. So there's, yeah, we have a list, and I think polling all of the scientists and finding out where those connections are being made explicitly, so that, as you said, it doesn't sound like we're just sort of doing these broad strokes, but we're drilling down into the specific elements of that. And I think one of the areas that we can do a much better job, and I totally take responsibility for this, is really coordinating REU, RET efforts, and making sure that one of the products of those interactions is some sort of lesson plan or piece of social media, something that articulates very specifically what that work is doing. We've done it, and different researchers have continued to do it, but I think we need to really focus on where those are and just pull it together so it is more cohesive effort and a component of our education and outreach.
Right. No, I think that would be great. I think also figuring out maybe some creative ways to show the areas where LTR content gets integrated into your program, right?
Yeah.
Where someone looking at your presentation can see, oh, that's SBC results or data or something like that, right? You know, and that ties to the proposal in this way or something. So those are really powerful things to figure out how to do.
Yeah, and every exploration in the reef starts with an introduction to the work of the SBCltr and our kelp forest ecosystem. So, you know, some people could say, oh, well, you're just paying lip service to it. But we sort of use that as the point of entry and to get that brand, if you will, in the minds of the visitors, whether they're K-12, general public, other undergraduate courses, et cetera. And then, you know, at the bare minimum, referencing some of the work that's being done. And then to the degree that we have products from researchers, then we utilize those where appropriate.
Cool.
Okay, thanks, Scott.
Yeah,
I think there's some good points Dan made. I think we can maybe formulate a couple of a case study or two of, you know, how the thread of an SBC science, the thread of science results kind of feed into and enhance a lesson or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for coming today, everybody, and thank you, Scott. It's been great for the to hear this update on the outreach stuff.